Ready?
Yes, it's started.
He's not on it? Oh, he's not on it. Hi everybody, good evening. Hope you're doing well. It's now what number is this?
Number four.
Number four of I Still Do, and we are so determined to make sure that marriages work. Our motto: no divorce, no separation. And if you're struggling with your marriage, please send your questions in. We're happy to answer your questions. If you need help, we're happy to help you. If you want counseling, we're happy if you send your number. We'll be happy to counsel you both together. We've seen how this works. We understand it. So with us tonight is my wife.
Hi everyone, good to be with you
And
again.
Alex, who's been married.
16 years
How
now.
long have you been married?
46.
For nearly 46.
No, 45, right?
45.
46.
Sorry, yeah.
It seems like a long time when you've been on it that
We've
long.
been together 46 years this year.
And
Oh,
this
wow.
is
Yes.
Danny, and Danny's been married how many months?
I think.
If you say months, it seems longer.
Yeah.
Don't say years.
This is a year and a half almost.
That's 18 months,
Yeah,
so more like 18
18 months,
years,
yeah.
you know? Mum, yeah?
6 years.
6 years. So, did I do your wedding?
No.
Yeah,
no.
I did.
No, you gave me
yours?
away. You were the father
Oh,
of
okay.
bride.
Okay. All right. So tonight, tell them what we're going to talk about tonight.
Well, tonight we want to talk about love languages, and it's just so important that we not only understand love languages in different individuals, but I know for us, we were just talking, and most of us, for example, if I spoke French and you spoke German, you're still not going to understand me if I'm speaking to you in French because your language is German. And that's what we really need to understand, because many of us today, we talk to people in our language assuming that they understand our language, but we've got to find out what the people around us, especially spouses, what's their language. And even if you're not married, what's your dad's love language, what's your mother's, what's your siblings, and it's learning their love language, because we're all different. And we were just I don't know if you've ever done the quiz, but we were just discussing our love languages that the quiz threw out, you know. What's yours, Alex?
So mine is words of affirmation. So I think words are really important to me. Let me know that I'm doing something good. I think that's more important to me than maybe I don't know, physical touch, for instance. So I think if I'm doing something and it's going unnoticed, or I feel it's going unnoticed, that actually can make me feel unhappy, should I say?
Okay,
Yeah.
And that was
definitely.
yours was spot on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That was definitely me. Yeah.
I like what Danny said. She said she does it all the time and it changes. It depends what mood
That
you're
must have
in.
been created by a woman.
It's actually not. It's actually rather creative.
Yeah. It changes that many times.
Gary
It must be a woman.
Chapman.
Yeah, so it's a
No,
man.
there can't be a man.
Yeah.
Man would
Very
never
much.
do
Well,
that.
apparently mine is my primary love language is quality time, and I like to have that quality time, and you know, whether it be going out for dinner or having a holiday, that's really important to me, and I think that's accurate, because I really do appreciate, and I don't know if it's because I'm the older one out of these ladies, and over time it's just like you realize time with that individual is so vital, because it can be about other things, but as you get older and you realize I can do without all the other stuff, but I just want to spend as much time
But
with that person.
there's a point there though. You may like spending time with that, but what happens if you have an unpleasant person you want to spend time with?
Maybe that wouldn't be my love language.
Yeah,
And obviously, if
Because women do.
but it's frustrating as well, because if my love language is quality time and you don't get that, then we've got two unhappy
Yeah.
individuals,
What
right?
I'm saying is, there's people listening now, right, where they may have the same thing as you, but until you deal with other things in your relationship and marriage, it's not nice being together. Do you know what I mean? Because you could end
Yeah,
up
you
with
can
arguing
crave.
all the
Yeah,
time.
you can crave it, and
So-
I guess that's why some people are this like they almost seem addicted to that toxic relationship because they're trying to get that quality time out of that individual, and then they get rebuffed, and you keep going back because you're looking for that, but that person is incapable of giving you that, what it
Yeah.
is you desire.
Yeah.
I think let's just explain to everybody what the 5 love languages are for those of you that don't know
Yes.
what we're talking about.
Yes.
No, wait, just a minute. You're telling me there's just 5?
There's, so
Right,
basically
like
they've
prime
been
time.
If
categorized
there's 5, we're happy people, right?
No, but
There's
they've
only 5.
basically categorized it. So within
Yes.
those 5 love
It'll-
language, there's so
everything
many
should
different
fit.
things that's encompassed within those 5 love languages. And basically, it's not been proven. So, but it has worked for so many people when they tune into what their partner or their spouse actually how they receive love, and I think that's really important. So let's just highlight what those love languages are and how those are displayed, or how you actually show
Go ahead.
that form of love language. So the first one is quality time. Sorry. So quality time, I think for me, is not just about spending time. So you can give somebody lots of hours, but it's what the content of what you do in those hours. So if you're somebody that's just present, but you're always on your phone, or you're always distracted, or you're not actually giving me your attention, then that's not quality.
No.
So quality time means that you're present.
Your
You're
phone is nowhere
there.
inside.
Exactly, that you're
You're
actually.
looking at
Can I
me.
just say something a minute?
Glad you understand me.
Do you feel
Right.
attacked?
No. Can I say this? I have all my pastoral life been. I run everything from the
We
phone.
weren't putting the finger in here.
Listen. Let me explain this. No, because when people say they phone me and they say I want to make an appointment, I say, do you want to see me or do you want to speak to me? And they say, well, I want to speak to you. So, well, I'm listening. So I got rid of all my appointments like that, but it means more time on the phone, less time in the office.
Right.
As you'll notice on a Sunday, we have 0 appointments because I deal with it in the office, so I have more time to give to her. Come on.
We weren't accusing
No,
you
I'm
of
just saying.
anything.
I'm just saying because there's other people.
Is there a hint of guilt
bit of
in
guilt.
this?
No,
Is
that's-
there a hint of
Possibly.
guilt in
No,
the
you're
statement?
talking about the phone.
Yeah, it's like we're at dinner and he's improved. But then he's got this annoying thing he's got on his phone, which I guess we can all activate it, but this light flashes. So even though he's got it on silent, this big torch light is like,
No, I turned
we were
it
at
down.
dinner,
I turned it on
whichever
the
way.
wrong way up.
We were at dinner last night and this light is like lighting up the
Every
table.
time he gets a message.
No, look at, yes, every time a message comes through, his phone lights up. It's
My
like,
phone's very busy because that's how I do business. That's how I run everything.
Okay, so
go
quality
on.
time means that you're actually giving your partner, your spouse, the quality time. So
yeah.
that means
put your
setting
phone in
aside
airplane mode.
what you're doing and actually listening to hear, not just listening to just you're not actually hearing what they're saying. So
Right.
you're listening and you're taking in what they're saying. You're present. You make eye contact. That's really important. A lot of people don't make eye contact. The next one is physical touch. So, like me, I'm like I want to touch your time, like I want to stroke you, I want to, I want to rub you, I want to
Let me tell you, Danny. Let me say something to Danny, right? Every picture that you could find with me and her, she's holding on to me.
Oh.
Every
Because that's my
picture.
thing. I like to feel like you're here
From a
all
little
the
girl.
time.
Every picture, she's near me, she's leaning on my arm. That's true.
So physical touch is pretty much what it says. It's you like to be touched. You like that embrace. It could just be a hug. It could just be a hold your hand. It could just be stroke your hair. It could be anything like that. So that's obviously physical touch. Acts of service is where you do for that person. So some people like you to do without them having to ask you to do it. So for example, if a man likes his house clean, it shouldn't be that he has to ask you or ask you for his dinner. It's just done. Or you know, if he needs his clothes taken to the dry cleaners or whatever it might be, or errands run, he doesn't have to prompt you to do it. You're doing it as an act of service.
Yeah.
And then we have gift giving. So this is.
we
I
all
don't
like
think
that
anyone
one.
doesn't like that. No one's ever going to say no to Chanel.
You talk about a different level of giving.
So that's obviously where you give gifts, and I think that coupled with that is also, you know, I think thoughtful things. So I don't think it's just like material gifts. I think the writing notes,
Yeah.
the you know, just the thoughtful acts of, you know, showing you and demonstrating to you their love. So it's more of an outward giving.
Yeah.
When you talk
thing.
about giving gifts, though, I think you need to clarify it, because some people think it's got to be big, expensive
No,
gifts.
no,
When we got married, I used to buy her on the way home on a Friday when I got paid, because I got paid cash. I'd stop at the sweet shop, I'd get her a bottle of fizzy drink, Tizer, and I'd get a bar of chocolate. That was the budget.
What we could
So
afford.
that's what I can give. But I did it every week. And gradually, as we went on, I did better and better and better. So for the people listening who say, well, I don't have that to give, yeah, it's the thoughts that go
Yeah.
into it, you know, that you're saying, I'm thinking about it. If I give you a gift coming home from work, I'm saying to you, I've been thinking about you. And as soon as I got paid, you were on my mind.
Yeah.
So here's a bottle of Tizer and here's a chocolate bar. She's never scorned it. She never rejected it. But it was all I could do at the time. So I think for those listening, you know, and
It's
even
not the grand gestures.
yeah, but spending time together as well doesn't mean flying on an aeroplane. Sometimes it's sitting on your floor and creating a picnic,
Yeah.
creating an environment. It's
Yeah.
like going to
Yeah.
a park, sitting there feeding the ducks and talking about your dreams and your visions and your goals. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Is that good?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
And then and then we have words of affirmation, which is, you know, saying to somebody that you appreciate them. Well done, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job. It's doing those, it's saying those things, and some people really need to hear that. I think, especially men, I think a lot of the times need to hear that they're doing a good job. A lot of men just go, and they never really get to hear you're doing amazing. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
You're an amazing man. Out of all the men in this world, I chose you. And I think that that's really important that we speak into our men's life to build them up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the 5 love languages.
Yeah.
So Marmy, do you want to share what yours
What's yours?
is?
I think mine is doing that test. It says it's words of affirmation, but for me, it's also giving of gifts.
Giving or receiving? Both.
I want
You're a
to
woman.
receive.
Yeah.
I'm happy to give them. But I think I give love in a different way. So I like to pamper, I like to feed. You know, Ofe says I'm a Nazi in the kitchen. So for me, if I can't make your dinner, or you know, that for me is like, you know, that's my way of saying I love you.
Yeah,
I really
mine
want
too.
to, you know.
Yeah.
So
See,
if
that does relate to me.
yeah.
That cooking for me, because with me, I can do without food.
Do
Or
you like
I
good
can,
food?
yeah,
Do
but
you
I,
like
yeah,
good
yeah, I
food?
do. But I don't have to have it.
Right.
You know, I don't. It's not a part of my daily need.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? I don't. For as much as she cooks, it doesn't do nothing for me.
But
I like the food, but I'm not a foodie. Like, you know, I can have a sandwich
Yeah.
and I'm good. Today, this morning, I didn't have nothing to eat until we went to the wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Therese got married today. For those of you who don't know, she looked amazing.
Looked
beautiful,
amazing.
She was, yeah, she got married today.
Congratulations, Therese and
So-
Bissy.
But I think with the food thing for me, so this week, you know, I said to Ofe, what time are we having dinner? He said 8 o'clock. I'm telling everyone that. And then he said, oh, actually, you know, I'm going to do some exercise. And so I'm thinking, oh, but I want to cook for you. I want your dinner to be, and I want it to be hot. I don't want it to be
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
it cold.
No.
But Ofe doesn't really get that. So for him, that's not his love language. His love
Exactly.
language, you know, his love language is let's just sit in front of the sofa and just. But I'm like, you know, I want you to really enjoy it and be happy, and I made effort, and he just doesn't get
I've got
it.
I've got a valid point here, right? It's no good you showing a love language that I don't relate
That's
to.
right.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Then I'm
Yeah.
gonna say this
Yeah.
out to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no good you giving me. It's like me giving her flowers, and it reminds her of her father's funeral.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, can I just clarify the love languages? I think everybody has probably got all of them, but to the degree. So like this test I done, quality time was my top one, but I scored in all of them. So you find that
Obviously.
obviously, but we all have them. So it's understanding that. But it's not just knowing our language. Like I said at the beginning, so if I'm speaking French and he's speaking German, he's got to learn my French and I've got to learn his German.
Yeah.
So even though he may not be that fussed about, well, he's never had a wife that throws down rubbish in front of him.
I've only had one.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just had gourmet his whole married life. So it's not that big a deal. Whereas I can hear some of you guys like, I wish my wife would take the time to just give me that gourmet. So, but it's for him to understand, oh, she's showing me love. And understanding that, and same thing, I've got to learn all his love languages, and not just learn them, but learn them in the order of what's the most, what's his primary. So, and it's for me to communicate to him. So if I'm giving you love, it's got to be in a way that you're going to understand.
100%.
But you've also got to give. We've also got to give each other love.
Here's the way it works, right? I'm a pro, right? This works. Here's the way it works. I've got to, when you get married, you have got to focus on what makes that person happy.
Yes.
It should have nothing to do with your happiness.
Yes.
For instance, you like shopping, and my God, you like shopping. Remember, you just taught, even when we didn't have the money, she'd just go from one end to the next, after the next.
It's called window shopping.
Well,
All
yeah,
girls do that, right?
Well, but I did, see, I'm different. I won't look unless I can buy. So when I looked at that, I started learning to like what you like, even though I didn't like it. So I think where a lot of people get it wrong is if you're trying to do it your way because you like it, but the other person doesn't feel the same. It's got to be where we make the sacrifice and say, this is what Danny likes. I'm going to do this for Danny, even though I don't like it. Food shopping, I hated it. But
so should I stop cooking?
No, if you didn't want to cook, I'm okay. But I'm saying to you,
At all?
it's not a problem. Even before I met you, food was never a big thing for me. It's never been.
But for some people, it's major. Like Jerome is like,
yeah,
A foodie.
I'm not like that.
he loves food.
Yeah.
Like it's
Every
it's
Christmas.
a part of his day. Like
Yeah,
But
but
he makes me feel good.
Sure,
If no one
yeah,
else does,
Oh,
because
you know,
he
Jerome.
is like
Yeah.
savouring everything.
Ashley goes,
Yeah. See, that's what I get.
yeah.
It's not because most of the time I cook and I barely may even eat any of it.
Yeah.
I'll be like picking.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a pleasure that it gives to
But
everybody
for
else.
me, even in school, I didn't eat the school dinners. I would go the whole day
Oh, we did.
without
We used to go
food.
over
I
seconds
would I'd save my dinner money, and I didn't eat the school dinners. I'd leave in the morning with nothing. I'd come home in the evening and eat when Mum did dinner.
Why?
I was saving my money.
Exactly. It's another reason.
Yeah,
though.
but what I'm saying is, food was not that big a deal for
Yeah.
me. So I would do without it and save the money.
But
So
I think it's also then if it's not important to you, but it's the way she loves you, you have to speak her language.
not really. No, I think you're getting it the wrong way around because she's supposed to speak my language.
Yeah, but
You
it's
have to
compromised.
both ways. It works both
because
ways.
I'm already focused on her love languages. I'm doing everything to
But
make
that
her
is my
happy.
love
But
language.
Then no, that wouldn't be. I'd say she's doing it for me. I'm not doing it for her. But she likes to cook, and I do eat the food. But it's not. It's
What
never.
did you say yours is quality time?
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe it's affirmation. So maybe you need that affirmation
You
that
see,
you
yeah.
know what
Well, that's what the
I
thing
want to
told
be.
me.
I want people to appreciate. No, but
Yeah.
I think the
That's
thing
right,
is
that's
with
the
love
truth.
languages, you have the primaries and secondaries.
So
Yes,
Shwashin is affirmation.
So in a lot
Right.
of
that was my
It's not the
secondary.
cooking.
So
That
a
was
It's not
lot
the
of-
cooking.
secondary.
It's the affirmation.
a lot of the love
Okay,
languages,
okay.
you have a primary and you have a secondary. So they're usually very close, and they're usually what you kind of fluctuate between the
Yeah.
two, and you'll kind of go between your primary and your secondary. But they're the ones that you speak. Those are the love languages that you function in the most. So just from the sound of it, it sounds like you like that affirmation, like to be told,
Like when
I
you
love
eat
your
it, then the kids
cooking.
go,
I appreciate your cooking. And I've observed it that you take great pleasure in everyone
Yeah.
really enjoying.
Because she sits there and waits for the
your-
comments.
Yes, she does.
She does it like.
But that's lovely.
It's lovely. I like
Yeah,
that.
for
Yeah.
her, that's then if you do that, that's her saying, okay, well, they love me, or they
Yeah.
love what I'm doing, because that's her saying, I love you, so I do this.
Yeah.
So then if you reject it, it's sort of saying, well, I
Or
don't.
don't acknowledge
Yeah,
it.
it's like a rejection of that love. That's the problem.
Okay, but I have another question for, it's not just us here, but for the people online now. What about the women who have a husband that will not change, or the husband where they just don't understand or they don't want to try? That's going to lead to a bad position, right? Because you're always going to be arguing. But I think when you really love someone, and you know, I'll go back to that scripture in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1 to 7, and when it talks about the extreme joy in trials of persecution and their abundant giving in their poverty, and it's where this really got me, it's been stuck with me for a long time. It says, this they did because they first gave themselves to the Lord. Then they were able to give themselves to us.
Right.
And I think a lot of problem is the person or people have not given themselves to God, and neither have they given themselves to each other. And what are you all have in common here? I think what's in common here is that all of you seem to have got to the place where you've given yourself to God and able to give yourself, all of yourself. Because when you give yourself, it's like your desires change. It's no longer I, me, and myself. It's more now, how can I make this person happy? And I think where a lot of people are lacking is both parties have not given themselves to God and then to each other.
Yeah.
So when it comes to this, for a lot of people now, this is very alien. This kind of thing's like, what are they talking about? Love languages. I work every day. And they don't get it because they have never surrendered their heart properly. And when you may be born again, but you've never got to that place where you just lay everything at Calvary and say, God, here I am. Take me, use me any way you want. And in so doing, the next step is when you've done that, it's so easy to say to your husband, your wife, how can I make you happy? I think that's the missing ingredient.
Yeah.
I think it's so true. I think that it requires such a level of selflessness.
Yeah.
And I think that this is all great and lovely, but the reality is if you don't desire to see your spouse happy and to see them be the best that they can be, I think that this is all very pointless. I think that it has to start with the fact that, you know what, I actually put their happiness before my own.
Yeah.
And I think it really is that, you know, that desire to sacrifice whatever you know, you can do without, you know, I can do without, but you know, I want to know that my spouse is happy every single day, and I think that has to be the resounding thought. If this is going to even work, if this concept is going to work, I think that love languages, the concept can only work if you have two willing people
There you go.
Yeah.
How can two
coming
walk together?
together.
as one agree?
Exactly.
How can two
And I
walk together?
Yeah, and I
still
think
agree?
just coming back to your question, where if you're the woman and your husband is not reciprocating anything, it's just going back to what you said. You've
And
got
vice
to have,
versa.
and vice
Yeah.
versa. Yeah, just loving on them. It's amazing how, you know, where the Bible says just a soft word, it can just change an atmosphere within an instant, and I think it's very important. Yeah.
And I think the word that we should focus on in the whole thing is love.
Yeah.
Because when there is love, it eliminates, because where there's true love, it eliminates selfishness. And when you're giving, it's giving of yourself. And when you think about some of the things, when you're speaking your language, like for me, throughout the lockdown period, I've been cooking, you know, all the time, and especially
All
on
the
the
time.
Sundays, like some days, I mean, I've done like massive. I did, was it Japanese? I did went
shit.
through whole.
This is one.
No, yeah, because it's coming up with different ideas. But I went through the whole Nobu, the restaurant cookbook, and I did Nobu. It was fantastic, but it was so much work. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
But it was because it was my language, and this is how I'm expressing to everybody, you know, how much I love them. It never, even though it was a lot of work, it took a lot of time, it never felt like, oh, this is too much.
Right.
And that's the thing, when we become selfish in our acts of service to one another, when we're selfish with it, it's like everything is a chore then. So I'm not doing it from the actual place of love, but then I can put your meal down, but I despise the time that it took me to put that together for you. Or I can buy you a gift, but then because there's not that love is in that gift, I'm not going to look for the best gift that I can possibly get.
Yeah.
I'm going to look for just something to get by.
Totally.
So the extent of how selfish we are and how much love is in our language will determine the quality of what we do for others.
Yeah, I think it requires you to also not, as you said, not to be selfish, but to constantly analyse, because Ofe is great in that. He's very, very supportive. So if I'm working late at night, and I often work in our office upstairs, he works downstairs, and if he's done for the day, he'll come and lie on the spare bed and just lie there till I'm done. And it could be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, he'll be there. And he hates working upstairs.
Yeah.
And so then if I say, then I thought, actually, what, I'm going to go downstairs and spend some time with him, but I hate working downstairs,
Yeah.
absolutely hates it. It's cold and but I just think actually he does it all the time. And so sometimes I have to pause and think, hold on a minute, am I giving him my best? Because actually I'm really good now, he's doing great, if my trainers, go the soles are gone, he'll just order train. I haven't asked. So he's always thoughtful.
Good husband, of
His head just swollen over. Use some eyes to shrink it back.
He's very good, and great with the kids. I said, over lockdown, I want to lose weight, I want to run, and so then he will, get the kids ready so I can go running in the morning.
Yeah.
And then he sort of said, he's going to the gym with a friend, and I'm thinking, well, I want to run. We're taking my run time. But then I think, but hold on a minute, for the last 6 months I've ran nearly every morning, and he hasn't bothered. So let him also. So I have to sort of evaluate on the other side.
Yeah.
Well, it's that selfish element,
Yeah.
isn't it? Because if you have been selfish with that, then it'd be like, well, no, I'm not
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
But
But I think
goes
it's
up
also
balance,
not
yeah.
taken for granted when you
Yeah.
do have a good spouse
Yes,
that is
yeah.
willing to do and to do and to do, because you can kind of then just go into receiving mode and you're like,
Yeah.
True.
That is
Yeah.
so
keep it coming,
easy.
keep it
I
coming.
think we've all been guilty of that one. That's so
Yeah.
And
Oh, no,
I think
easy.
especially
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
women, I
Yeah.
think because the man is the kind of doer, provider,
Yeah.
I think a lot of the times
Yeah.
it's very easy for us to kind of just kick back and receive, and I
Yeah.
think we're all
Well, I
guilty
think,
of that.
and then we put these expectations out
Yeah.
there, and I think most women are guilty of that. Come Valentine's, it's like, what has he done?
Yeah.
But then who said Valentine's was just about men?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing for the women.
Yeah.
It's about us both being considerate
Yeah.
and being creative. I know for me, it's like when it's Valentine's, we usually pick somewhere to go together, pick a hotel, whether it's in the UK or what. But then we still both have gifts. I'll have gifts that I've been buying, and you buy the chocolates and you buy all the stuff and you put them in a suitcase. So when we get there, there's something that we're giving to each other,
Yeah.
and it's not me sitting in that mode waiting for the flowers, waiting for the chocolates, waiting for the dinner. And I think we set ourselves up then to be disappointed, and it's always, for me, it's about engaging and being participant, and not just being a reciprocator, but being a participant in that love language that you're building together as a couple.
One of the downfalls in is that, like John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world, he gave. He gave because of love. And a lot of people give because of agenda. To
Yeah.
manipulate, to cause different
control.
to
Yeah.
control. When you give it for love, whether you get back or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because you've given it. Like when I give, one of my things I give, I can't help myself. I just give. I give to people I don't know. One time a gardener came to a house and he was in debt, and I gave him £7,500 to redeem his mortgage. You know what I mean? And they're like, "Are you crazy? Are you mad? Have you lost your mind?" And but that's just me.
Yeah.
I have no problems giving, and for me, I can't understand why people don't give. But when I give, I'm not looking for anything back, and I think that's the key. That when you're giving, it really doesn't matter what she does for me or doesn't do for me. I'll just keep doing what I do. And I think what some people listening now, I think you have to understand that when you give, just do it out of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When love never fails.
Yeah.
So when you're doing it, because like you cook, and I said to her, this is the difference when she cooks, you could feel the love. You know, if she bakes, there's the love.
Yeah.
It's very different than when someone just gives you some. And a lot of churches have taught this with giving. They're teaching people to give, which breeds to get it breeds covetousness. And when you give into your husband, your wife, whoever, it just do it out of love. And even if they don't give anything back, just keep doing it until they catch it.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things where people fall down with that. It's like, okay, I've heard you tonight, I'm going to do this. And then when the person doesn't reciprocate and doesn't respond in a positive way, then it's like, I'm going to cast it away. That didn't work. And it is to remove that element that I'm doing this, but I'm waiting for you to do something back. Because I know the Bible says love never fails. And if I keep doing it long enough, if I keep showering you with love long enough, even though you're not reciprocating. I think you were telling me of a story of someone recently who loved on their dad or something, and it changed them. And so I just want to encourage you, you may hear what we're saying tonight and you think, I'm going to do the quiz and I'm going to start doing this and I'm going to start sharing my spouse or even my family, because this isn't just about husband and wife. Love languages is about the people in your life, whether it be your siblings, whether it be your parents. It's expressing to them in a way, and it's not doing it with the mindset that I want them to reciprocate or do back for me. Even if they never did, that's okay. This is you. This isn't about them. This is your journey to go to another level.
I have a question. I have one question for all of you. One question. You're at this level now, right? Can we go back to that level? Like when you first met your husbands and your...
Well, I was just going to say that. I was going to say you can't talk about love without understanding somebody's past and their history. Because everyone's had a different interpretation of what love looks like.
How did you begin? Like,
well,
what's the
that for
challenges?
me, like I was
She's
gonna,
the freshest
I was
one.
gonna,
Freshest
I'm
in
a
your
newbie.
memory.
So when I first met Jerome, we were friends first for a long time, but he was very what I would consider as being quite cold. Where I was like the complete opposite. I'm like a love bug compared to him, and it was I think for him he was like, whoa, like where have you come from? And I think we were so different in the sense that I very much showed love outwardly, and you would know there was no question about it if I love you or if I care for you. And I think for him, I know for him, his turnaround was, I don't know if you remember the Heart of the Father conference.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And for him, it's like where God really just broke him and mended him, and just allowed him to be able to receive love in a healthy way. And I think you can never underestimate somebody's past or where they've come from. So, sometimes you feel like you're putting all this effort in and they're not receiving it. But sometimes you have to go back and actually have that conversation. Why do you do the things the way? Why do you do things the way you do them? Like, why do you respond in the way that you respond? And a lot of the times people don't actually recognize, and it is kind of going back and backtracking. And actually, if they've maybe not had a healthy relationship with their parents or siblings, or if they've come from maybe a broken or abusive relationship, all of those things can affect how somebody receives or gives love.
Yeah. But here's a question. Let me give you a question. What's the most challenging thing you have found about learning each other's love language? What's the most challenging
I
thing?
think if it's not my natural, I think trying to do it. So I feel I'm a work in progress there, So my love language, as I said, is words of affirmation. Gerard's is acts of service. So even just this afternoon, we were discussing it, and he's the type of person, I like to go for a run in the morning, so he'll get the children's clothes ready. He's got breakfast ready, and I guess I was kind of taking him for granted in that way, because I thought, that's the kind of thing I would do. But for him, it was really important. It was really important that he was doing that. So for me, I've now realised I need to be doing, like before I go for my run, I need to just get things ready, and so just little things like that. I think it can be quite challenging if it's not your natural.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think the biggest thing is that we've changed over time, and our priorities have changed over time. So before we had kids, we were out, every weekend. We'd seen every move, like we were doing every,
Living your best life.
And then the kids come along, and then actually it's not about going out. It's actually like just do the dishes, or like, just like if I come home, just please don't have it in a mess. So it all changes, and then we were at different places when we met. When we met, we were both training. Now we're it's a totally different place. So it's like supporting me, I supporting him. So we've both changed, and I think we were talking about it and sort of saying it would be such an error to think that we're still where we were.
Yeah.
So, but I think fortunately we've actually clocked on that, hold on a minute, life has changed. So, you know, okay, we might not be able to go out every night, but we could, you know, spend time together, or if you support me in this way, or help me with this, or just listen to me, that is what's needed now, and it could change again.
But do you know what she did? She used to do to me. She doesn't know this. Because
Okay.
when we met,
What's he
hold
going to
on.
disclose? Don't live with me afterwards.
Yeah. I hated shopping. For me, shopping, we could go anywhere, and she'd tell you, you'll never see me look anything for me. I have no desire for anything in the shops, nothing. I don't do that. And we would go, and I'd walk around with her, but then she started saying to me, let's have lunch first. You know what I mean? And it's like, she kept introducing that all the time. Let's have lunch first. And it was like, okay. And by the time you have lunch, it's like, yeah, I don't mind. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't just the shopping.
Yeah.
She included something else that made it more
Pleasant.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's not always you're hungry, it's just sitting there having a coffee,
That's nice.
it's eating out. And she'd always say, let's have something to eat first.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she knew
I
if
did.
she
Done
did
it on
see it. Yeah,
purpose.
there you go. Very intentional. Okay.
It was intentional because I didn't want him tagging along. You know, some husbands walk behind you and they're so disconnected. And for me, I think when we do things, we want to be fully present. So whatever we do, you know, I don't want him to be like, he's followed me, but he's so disconnected from where we're at. So it was always about whatever we do, whether it's just going around the shopping centre. I wanted him to be very much present. So we would be, I knew.
It's called wisdom.
Yes, wisdom.
Yes.
Ladies, if you're taking your guy out to do something you want to do, feed him first. Once his belly is
But it
full,
wasn't just the food. It
But-
was like, it was more of a day out.
it's like quality time. Yeah.
It's more like, oh, we're going to dinner.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't so much, oh, we're
And
going shopping.
we actually still
We
do
still
that
do
to
it
this
now.
day.
Yeah,
It's
we
one
still
thing
do
we've
it.
maintained in all the years before we do anything.
And then she started taking me to places where she's trying on the clothes.
There's
and
chairs.
There's chairs, and they bring me coffee.
And they
And
yeah.
that was it.
Some
I was going
some
anywhere.
shops. Well, yeah, if he's happy, if I was like, would you like a cup of coffee, sir? And they bring him a coffee, he's good.
And then
I
I
can
start-
try
what
on
I-
100 outfits.
But then what I started doing, I started making all my phone calls while I'm waiting.
Yeah.
So it's
So-
a win-win.
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
It is a win-win, and I don't moan about that. That's the only time he can have his phone out and do all his phone calls, because I know he's being kept occupied and he's utilising that sitting around time. So we've just learned each other's language, and sometimes it's not like, okay, this is the 5 and I'm just going to work on the 5. It's actually understanding that person.
It's not thinking you've arrived.
No.
It's constantly evolving.
Well, we're
into the
changing
next-
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. But sometimes what I do, I'm following her. Sometimes I think I should put a tracker. You know,
He
it's
tells
like,
me, he'll phone me when he loses me.
I mean, how do you lose someone in the supermarket? And I'm walking down all the aisles and I can't see her. And I'm like, where's she gone? And I don't know if she stops in the middle. I've never stopped at the end of the aisle to
I
look at
don't,
nothing.
it's just I move
She
swiftly.
moves swiftly like
Yeah.
that. And in the stores when when lots of turnstiles with clothes on it, and I just answer the phone. I'm like, where's she gone? And I'm going, where are you? I'm phoning. But then what I do sometimes with her, I watch what she picks up, and then I said, do you like that? So when she's gone, I'll take it and pay for it. Do you know what I mean? Because I already know her sizes, her shoes, her dress.
That can be wrong as well. That can go wrong.
No, I've never
It can
got.
go wrong in the sense I've learned not to say to him, I like that. Because he'll go and buy it and I didn't like it like that.
You know what she's going to tell you. This is a classic story. This is an ancient story.
I've got to love
One
it.
time we were in this store and she picked up some cotton dresses. They're like Victorian.
Oh my God.
And she said she liked it.
90s.
So I bought them and wrapped it for
Christmas.
Christmas.
I was like, ah. It's one of those gifts you open at Christmas and you're speechless.
No, do you know what I do? I just have an online wish list. so
Okay.
for all the stores, and then he can just go in and see what.
Oh yeah.
and then
Now,
just
now I
easy.
just
Yeah.
Easy to
screenshot
check
and
out.
send him the pictures.
Exactly,
He's
that's what
already
I
been
do.
getting my Christmas list. I've been screenshotting, sending
No, but
across.
I think even in that, that you
Yeah.
can learn somebody, so you can learn what somebody will
Yeah,
like. And I think
yeah.
the more that you do something, the more familiar you are with it. Like I
Yeah.
know Dad, he can go and buy any of us shoes
Yes.
because he's
Yeah.
actually
And
taken
bags.
and bags because he's actually taken the time to learn
Learn
us.
us, yeah.
And I think that is
Mm.
the more you invest in, the
Yeah,
more you're going to
yeah.
get out of it.
Yeah.
He's actually better at buying handbags for me than I am. I don't actually buy myself handbags. Every handbag I've got, he buys.
See?
There you go.
See, I sent Jerome to him, so he's like
Yeah,
training him.
I went into London this week. I just wanted to bless her, you know.
Yeah.
So I just went to London and picked something nice up for her. And I says, Happy Tuesday.
Oh.
Or Happy
Yeah.
Monday.
Oh.
And she's like, she looked at the bag and she, oh, really? I said, yeah, not Christmas presents for now.
Yeah.
It's not for
Just
Christmas.
because.
I
It's
hope
just
you
because.
guys.
Those are
I
the
like
best
that
gifts,
idea.
are just because.
Yeah, we just started a new trend. Off, I'm signing you into the
No
club. It's
pressure,
just
no
because.
pressure,
This is
man.
the apartment where you take out the
Take
notepad and write
notes.
down.
So
Take notes.
what I do, let me tell you what I do. Every year, I begin my Christmas shopping in September.
Yeah.
So I work my way through the big stuff. You know, by September, October, I've got the big stuff. Then I go down to the smaller things, and then by December, I'm done.
Right.
You know, but I put a lot of thought into what I do, and again, it's where we're determined to make the person
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not about me. I go into the shop. I can go and buy her underwear. I did the other day. I bought a load of pajamas. I
Did
was
such a
Victoria's.
good
I
job.
went to Victoria's
Yeah.
Secret and I picked. Well, I went around, picked up all her
Yeah.
pajamas for her. Then I went to
I
another.
didn't even know what he'd picked up until we got home and I started
Oh,
unpacking. And then he went to
Box.
Box.
Oh,
And he came back with a big bag of jammies, and I thought they were so nice. You can
Soft.
see that you can see the detail
yeah.
that he put into picking them.
But don't compare, guys, because he's 45 years old.
Yeah.
Before women start slapping their
I know,
husbands.
Don't
He's,
cause any trouble
he's
here.
Yeah.
seasoned.
He's-
That
yes,
takes
yeah.
time. You won't do
Yeah.
that straight off the
I
bat,
think-
I think
right?
it's lovely to hear
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
But it's really important that you do get that. That's a really important point Danny made, because this wasn't always my life, my story. This was something that we have grown into. So at the beginning, this never used to happen, and we weren't in a position where he could afford the big things. So, you know, there were other things that were more priority. I wouldn't want him to spend the money on the gifts he gives me now when we were trying to buy a house and when we were initially building our way up through life. So now we're at a stage where, you know, some people, younger people nowadays compare, they look at what you have, they look at the things you have, but we're 60, we're in our 60s. So we've been on this journey a very
But it
long
began with a
time.
bar of chocolate
Yes.
and an appetizer.
Yes.
That's how it began.
Cherry aid.
Cherry aid. sorry.
Yes.
That's how it began.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But also it's interesting because Ofe sometimes says to me, "Shall I take you shopping?" And I'm like, "Oh, not really." You know, because I like to shop online, or I just go and look myself.
It's not
or
the same.
It's not quite.
It's not the same.
But
Yeah, I'm not a shopper
You know,
either.
I'm not really a shopping, but
Yeah.
he sort of hears it and thinks, oh, okay, but then my love language, that's not really what I want. So
Yeah.
you know,
But
if I want,
the problem then is that you do it often enough and that will leave him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, no,
Instead of
it's-
making it a day out. 'cause- no, it's,
Let's just take it away.
instead of making it a day. It's,
Yeah.
No, but listen, it's also one that tells me one of his love languages is giving.
yeah, for sure.
So if you can't give, there's no release.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but there's Christmas, there's birthdays, and
It's
and I definitely
a
want
proper
those
giver. A
presents.
proper giver doesn't do it. It's all
And
year
I think
round.
that's the thing. So we were in Spain the other day, and we were shopping, and I drove to come like full circle because before he hated shopping. So for him, he wanted to be involved
This was
in the
me.
process. So usually I'm like I know I want it. I go in. I know
Yeah.
what I'm looking
Yeah.
for. I know what works for me,
Yeah.
and I go. But obviously it takes a lot more like, oh, do you like this? Oh, no. And
Yeah,
it's back and forth.
Yeah.
But I was like, I understood that
learning.
it meant something to him
Yes,
it
to
does.
be
I
able to
agree. I think
participate
that's
in,
right. Yeah.
in
Yeah,
what we're
you're
doing.
right.
Because like he goes to shop and he actually cares about what I think and he will ask my opinion. And I think for the sake of what it takes away from me, it makes him feel good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's right.
It makes
And
him feel
that's-
good to
yeah.
be able to say, you know, I bought my
Yeah.
wife this stuff, I've been
Yeah.
able to take her shopping.
Absolutely.
You know, I even let him choose outfits or what he thought.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm like, okay, I'll try
Yeah.
Do you
that.
remember when was it your
Bless him.
was it your birthday? Was it your birthday? And you said that there's no shoes you saw.
Yeah.
And I went to the same shop and
Yeah.
I straight up, I said, didn't I? I
Yeah.
said, that's Danny right there.
Yeah.
And I picked up. Was that right?
Yeah.
Every time. So it's a learning thing. You got to learn it. And I see
Yeah.
Jerome's. We talk a lot. We have times in the garage where we talk, so there's no eavesdropping on us. So we go to the garage and we talk about it. But it's like with Jerome, I see the willingness
Yeah.
and the intent.
Yeah.
You know, he's very intentional on learning. He really, and this is the difference I think with the men. You have to, and the women, you have to want to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a drive. You know, when you've given yourself, it's like, what can I do for you? I want to bless you. How can I do?
Yeah.
And you just can't help yourself but do for that person. So there's another question here. So it's not a question. Someone says, interpretation of love language is watching and listening is the key. Well, it is, yes. If you're attentive to it. So when you, wherever you are right now, you know, make a decision to change. You
Well,
gotta-
there is that initial watching and listening, but there has to be the action follow through.
Yeah.
So it's not enough to just, if I'm watching and I'm listening,
Then
and I
it's-
don't do
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
you have to
But-
do something with the
But don't
information you
expect,
gather.
don't expect perfection straight
No,
on.
No,
not at
no.
all.
You know, you're gonna do it, and you think you're guessing. You know you're guessing. So this is what I
Yeah.
advise everybody to do, which solves the problem very quickly, very simply, very easily. If instead of trying to guess what your partner likes or your husband, your wife like, just write down 5 things you like.
Yeah.
Write down 5 things you dislike, and both of you do it. So I've got 5 things I've been saying to her for years now. Could you tell me, is there anything I'm doing that you want me to stop? Is there anything I can do better? And she just keeps saying, you're doing great, you're doing great. And that's good for me. Remind me when Jesus said, young rich ruler, thou lack is one thing. And I'm like, I lack none. You know, so it's just like, I've got it now. And it's not looking for perfection. It's starting off, and if you get it wrong, you don't worry about it. Get up and go again.
Yeah.
But if you write it down,
Yeah.
5 things you like, 5 things you dislike, for the next 6 months, work on those things.
Yeah.
So 5 things to do and 5 things to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You work on that for both of you doing it, and you're going to come out amazing. Your relationship will change so quickly if you do it that way.
Absolutely.
But I think it's also being pliable though, because I think that sometimes some people will hear this and be like, right, I'm going to learn the love language and that's what I'm going to do every day. And some people kind of get stuck and they're quite
Yeah.
rigid.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
it's just understanding that
Yeah.
through life you're going to grow and you're going to
change.
evolve and you're
Yeah.
going to change. And in different seasons you require different things. So we were talking before the show. So for example, when a woman has a baby, normally acts of service may not be her language, but if it means that, you know, you can do something so I can maybe catch a couple of hours of sleep,
Yeah.
that's going to go really far. That's going to be really
Definitely.
worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I think it's just understanding that in different seasons you require different things, and it's
That's true.
constantly relearning
Yeah,
each other
yeah.
because you know you're going to evolve, you're going to grow
Yeah.
so much over
That's
the
a really
years.
good point, Danny, because it could be what you're going through. Because I was saying to him today, we were driving, I said to him, you're my rock. You know, it's like a rock. It's like, for me, when I need that support and I need that strength, he's that rock. And whenever I need it, that rock is there. And it depends what you're going through. And, you know, years ago, maybe my main primary would have been receiving of gifts, but you change as you go
Well,
through
here's the
life.
next question. Question is, you guys sound like you've all mastered the love languages.
Not at
Is this the
all,
way?
no.
Is this the case, or are you still evolving and
Still
learning
evolving,
each other's love
evolving.
still
languages?
learning.
Yeah.
Very much so.
I
Why
think-
don't you give an example, each of you?
So what would you say you're still learning?
All of it. No, you do. I mean, you're still learning each other, and I think that, you know, in life you're gonna, like Jerome, who was 5 years ago, is not the person he is today, and I think
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
it would be, it's just like a baby. You wouldn't expect to feed a baby, or you'd feed them when they're 1 to when they're 5. I think that it's constantly relearning each other, and being attentive enough
Yeah.
to actually, and invested enough to actually want to
Yeah.
relearn each
Yes,
other,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
not kind of getting stuck where they once were. I think it's okay, you know, when children come along, or you know, when different pressures come along, or there's bereavement or anything like that, it requires something different, and I think it's just constantly evolving yourself and relearning each other, because that's how you stay tight.
Yeah.
That's how you stay as a unit.
Yeah.
I think
What about you, Mum? Yeah.
yeah, I think sometimes the busyness of life means that you kind of put it on the back burner. You think he's there, he'll always be there.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, just thinking and preparing for this, I was thinking actually need to make sure that I invest time in our marriage. And so, you know, we went away at the end of August. It was just like for a few days, and we did the same at Christmas. And it was just to a hotel, but I booked it, and I was determined that we did it, because I was thinking we need to invest in this, because otherwise, you know, you'll just find that you're both at opposite ends. And just even time to talk, because actually often, you know, we're in the car on the way to church, the kids are at the back, you just don't get the time, and then, you know, we get home so late and you're just sleeping. So I think just being intentional about learning one's love language and learning, you know, what is it that concerns him, what is he worried about, what is he really pushing for, okay, I need to understand that, listen, you know, research a bit about that, just in addition to dealing with, you know, my busy life, and not to be so selfish, but to invest in him. I think that's the biggest challenge for me.
I think for me, it's, you know, I'm really blessed. I do have a very good husband who's, you know, he always wants to know, okay, what can you do better?
I can hear Alex. I can hear Jared, sorry, shouting. I can hear you, Jared.
He's a good man, and I think
he is.
sometimes you, as I say, you can become complacent. So sometimes I have to go away for work for a few days, and it's when I get to my, you know, the conference, and I hear these women saying, oh gosh, I need to quickly call my husband to see whether he's put the food on, or and I don't need to do that. I mean, Jared, I know, I don't even think about it. I know he's got the children sorted, the food is done. So it's just really, even today I was just telling him, you know, thank you so much for that, because, it, you know, I've sort of taken you for granted, and actually that is a big thing, you know, not every woman has that.
I think for me it's recognizing, you know, that I think we've all been fortunate. We've all got amazing husbands.
That helps.
We have actually got amazing husbands, and it is so easy to take it for granted and think it's the norm. What's that saying? You never know when you got something good till you lost it. And I think it is so easy to take that for granted. And I remember one time I'd taken this pastor's wife out for dinner, and we'd gone to dinner in London, we'd gone to a show, and throughout the evening he was checking on me. I was getting phone calls, are you okay? You know, that's the way he is. He's constantly, if we're out, he'll never even go to bed. And even on the way home in the evening, so I'd met her, she'd got into my car, so she was obviously privy to the calls I kept getting. And then on the way home, it must have been after 11, going on 12, and he's calling, checking on me the whole way. And she turned around, she said to me, you know, my husband, and I could see it was getting to her. And she said, not one time has my husband checked on me. And in fact, after I dropped her back, I spoke to her the next day, the next day, to say, did you get home okay? And she said she actually broke down, because, and you know, and she said her husband had bought himself a Mercedes, but she had like an old banger, and so her car broke down, and she was trying to phone him to come and get her, and he wouldn't. And I was like, oh God, thank you Jesus for my husband, you know, because sometimes you don't realize, and he would stay up, and it didn't matter what time I got in, and like what you were saying, when you've you're still working. Whatever I'm doing, sometimes when I was working on the magazine, it was like 2, 3 in the morning, and he would stay up and he's like, you nearly done yet? I'm like struggling. Bless him. He was never a night person, but he's learned to be, because he would wait up for me. And, you know, sometimes you can take that for granted. So I think, you know, one of the things we have to learn in this language is not to take that person for granted. And sometimes we can nitpick the faults, and we can look at what their shortcomings, and we all have those, and we can focus on that we major on the minor and minor on the major, and it's to recognize if there's a good thing, a good quality, focus on that, and begin to appreciate that person, because you do not know how long you've got them in your life, so appreciate that.
I think just from what you were saying, obviously it's great to hear about all these amazing men, and that's not everyone's reality, and it would be unrealistic to think that that's everyone's reality. So what would you tell people that obviously they don't, this is like foreign to them, and they don't maybe are not married to
Mm.
somebody that's willing to kind of meet them halfway.
Well, this was our story at the beginning because obviously we got saved. We weren't saved, I should say, when we got married. So we'd been married probably 7 years before we got saved, but we didn't instantly switch. But I know for me, one of the things I personally learned was to push him to God. So when he would say, you know, I want to go spend 2 or 3 days locked in the room, spend time with God, I said, go.
Yeah.
Because I knew there's no way that he can hang out with God and come back the same, and I wanted him changed. So I would encourage him to go and spend that time with God, and it was that relationship. And sometimes I know as women we want them spend time with me, spend time with
Mine
me.
was not what with the odd day, it was every week.
Yeah, it was
It was
int-
every
it was
day off.
it was intense. But over the time, the closer he got to God, I benefited.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things from my personal experience, because it wasn't good. We were going to divorce before we got saved. So it's coming to Christ, but not just coming to Christ, but encouraging your husbands to spend as much time with God as possible, because in that room with God, he changes. And when he comes out that room, guess who benefits from that? Us, our family, ourselves, we benefit. So that's one of the things I can encourage you. Encourage him to spend time with God. Pray for your husband. You can't expect something good from that if you never take time to pray for him.
And you also get women who are not cooperative either.
No, it's true.
You do get it on both. I think it's
It's
more
both
men.
ways. Yeah.
But it takes two, and
Yeah.
like Amos 3:3 says, "How can two walk together lest they agree?" And, you know, Matthew 12:25 says, "A city, a house, a nation divided amongst itself cannot stand." You know, this is how many tons will one elephant pull? 7. How much would 2 elephants pull? Some said 14, no, 21. Unity is a powerful force.
Absolutely.
And every time you're out of unity, you're blocking the blessings of God in your life. And it's all of it is the same thing. It's the same with the Christian who struggles with their Christian walk. It's because they got one foot in the church, one foot in the world. Same with couples. It's because you're too much alive in your flesh. When Paul said, "I'm crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ lives in me." Go to the morgue and slap a dead man and see what he does. You will never get a reaction. When we crucify the flesh, we respond differently. We're not angry. We're not trying to hurt each other. And this desire to be right is destroying so many people's lives. You insist on being right all the time. You can't be right all the time. You know, and sometimes you've got to ask the question, this war, what's the spoils? You know, before you start the argument, you've got to ask the question, if I enter this war, what is the spoils and who's going to get the glory? When you fight and argue, there's only 3, it's God, the devil, or you. And most times it's the devil getting the glory. So we make a decision. It's not just to understand the love language, it's doing the primary things as well. Getting our house unified, getting our relationship on focus, have a vision, have a purpose, have plans for our marriage. This is where we want to be. Can you look at each other and say, I can still be with you in the next 20, 30, 40 years? Is that the goal? So we need to get back to this where we're looking at dealing with all the little things that there's the little foxes that spoil the vine. So all these little schisms and arguments and insisting on being right, that will stop any of this happening. I believe you will have the same goal.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because my mum was married to a man until he died who was not saved. And I just sit there thinking there must be people out there who experience that, who actually, they're not going to do that love language test. And I think one thing I learned from my mum, and it's amazing testimony, is just to love anyway. And to recognise that marriage is a covenant, and you know, because I think it's nice when it's reciprocated and it's all working well, but sometimes the reality is it just won't. And I think it's important to just love anyway, and to, you know, cook anyway, and to look after them anyway, not, you know, let hot porridge if I don't get my gift. You know, I've heard some women say that, and I think there's awful, but I think what's nice is, having seen that, all of her 5 children are like, okay, you might not love me, but you know, my duty is to love you anyway. And I think, I wouldn't say my expectations were low actually when I met Ofe, not because of who he was, but because of what I had seen. I just knew that I just have to do this. I've just got to get on with it. I've got to, you know, got to make sure dinner's on the table. I've got to make sure I function at the junction. But you know, fortunately, you know,
a big surprise.
But I think it's important to just love anyway.
Yeah, I think that for me,
That's
as
good.
whether I get
That's
anything
good.
or not, love is the only way.
Yes,
Just keep
yes,
doing it.
yes.
Yeah.
So anything else?
Alex?
What, 2 minutes?
What do you want to say?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
No, I was thinking, something that came to me as well was the fact that when people fall in love, sometimes they're on this big high and it's euphoria, and they think that is what marriage is. And I think it's really important for, especially people, in that process, the dating stage, to know that that's not just what love is. I mean, in fact, sometimes it's misleading because you act so silly, so, when you're on that stage, and you need people around you to ground you, otherwise you can just go off on the edge. And so I think it's really important that if you're at that stage where you're dating and you're, just totally in love, and your expectation is that's how marriage is going to be all the way through, then, you're so mistaken. Yes, you're going to get the, it's going to be lovely parts, but it's so much more. It's so much more richer. And I think, every single person should know that before they get married.
And we're out of time. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. I hope it's blessed you. If you have any
Yes,
questions,
hope
please
it's helped you.
email us. If you need someone to speak to, please email the church, v2vchurch@ol.co.uk. We'll be more than happy to call you and help you. Counseling is very easy if you have two people that are both willing. If you have one that's willing and one's not, there's nothing you can do. God himself cannot help you. But if both of you are struggling and you both say, I want this to work, then email us, and with your numbers, we're happy to call you and help you in any way we can. God bless you. We love you, appreciate you. Thank you. Don't forget on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and leave your comments as well. Amen. And don't forget subscribe and follow. Does that sound good? I'm professional at this now. Subscribe and follow us on YouTube as well. Amen. God bless you.
God bless
And don't
you.
forget tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock. We have our service, Kingdom Kids, is at
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock online as well. Amen.
Yay.
God bless you. And we have children's church tomorrow as well.
Yay.
We can preach now. God bless you. Have a wonderful night.